Turn on any screen today, and the Middle East appears as a region locked in a permanent, almost natural state of crisis. For a casual observer, the headlines blur together into a singular narrative of constant, inexplicable chaos. But that assumption that this specific part of the world is somehow inherently broken or naturally unstable ignores a massive historical reality. Long before cable news or modern states existed, the Romans marched into this exact same dirt. So did the Persians, the Mongols, the Ottomans, the British, and the French. The extreme frequency of conflict here is a direct reflection of the territory's value. It has been the most targeted and contested real estate in human history. To understand why, we must strip away modern boundaries, flags, and leaders to look purely at the bare geography. What we find is a massive structural trap dictated by three compounding layers of value sitting right on top of each other. Whenever geography, resources, and ideology overlap this perfectly, history guarantees that foreign powers will arrive to stake a claim. The first layer is the surface itself. Geographically, this landmass is the singular bridge connecting three distinct continents: Europe to the north, Asia to the east, and Africa to the south. As this map shows, sea trade forces ships into geographic choke points, narrow oceanic bottlenecks where wide-open shipping lanes squeeze into a few vulnerable miles of water. Here are three of the most vital: the Suez Canal, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Bab el-Mandeb. The math is brutal. Whoever occupies the land bordering these narrows holds leverage over the economic lifelines of everyone else. You can see the physical reality of this squeeze right here. These are colossal cargo ships, carrying thousands of tons of goods, forced to navigate a narrow trench of sand that an army could walk across. Through these specific geographic funnels, the essentials of modern life, especially petroleum, must safely pass to keep global markets functioning. Even if this entire region were completely empty of resources and people, its physical position on the globe ensures that any empire attempting to project global dominance would eventually try to conquer it. But it isn't empty. As the Industrial Revolution required more power, the region's immense value extended from the surface deep down into the subsurface. Looking at this chart of proven global petroleum deposits, a massive share of the planet's oil and natural gas sits highly concentrated directly beneath this specific geographic bridge. The discovery of that petroleum forced a collision. Western industrial powers arrived, sinking massive steel derricks into ancient sands to extract fuel for their economies. The addition of oil transformed the region into the primary fuel source required to prevent modern global economies from collapsing. Yet, raw materials and geography still ignore the final and most volatile layer of value, the human element. This relatively small stretch of land happens to be the birthplace of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Nowhere is the density of those overlapping ideological claims more visible than the ancient stone architecture of Jerusalem. Thousands of years of deep, uninterrupted physical roots place completely distinct faiths in extraordinarily tight geographic proximity to one another. Beyond local proximity, this landmass also holds massive global gravity, serving as the spiritual epicenter for nearly 2 billion Muslims worldwide. Historically, marching an army across a desert requires immense resources and high morale. While early emperors sought wealth and territorial expansion, religion provided the ultimate ideological justification to rally populations into war. This era of imperial warfare persisted into the early 1900s, reaching its conclusion with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Faith itself does not automatically produce warfare, but its presence here guarantees that any geopolitical struggle for land or resources instantly becomes tied to deep personal identity, survival, and divine legitimacy. Following the Ottoman collapse, European victors claimed the territory. Mark Sykes and Francois-Georges Picot drafted a secret agreement to divide the region. Watching this map, you can see how fluid, historically established ethnic and religious groups were abruptly boxed in by rigid, ruler-straight boundaries. These new, artificial nation-states forced deeply diverse populations to compete for domestic power and side borders they never chose. Enforcing that new political reality required foreign boots on the ground, placing European military forces directly in charge of local populations to maintain order. Decades later, as the US and the Soviet Union vied for global supremacy, they exploited these fractured domestic politics. The superpowers pumped immense volumes of military hardware into the region, elevating local disputes into heavily armed Cold War proxy battles. The combination of artificial borders and superpower interference created a system where internal diversity was frequently weaponized. The instability we see today is the result of external pressures forcing themselves onto a complex regional reality. When we bring these variables together into one frame, the scale of the trap becomes clear. You have diverse populations boxed into artificial borders, sitting on the energy resources required to run the modern world, positioned exactly at the crossroads of global maritime trade. It is a mathematical impossibility for a region possessing this specific, concentrated combination of leverage to simply be left alone by outside powers. Seen through this lens, the recurring violence is a predictable feature of global demand, a tragic byproduct of controlling the trade routes and energy the rest of the world requires. Ultimately, the entire world fights in the Middle East, simply because the world relies on the Middle East.